everyone, Steph here from thegoodride.com. We are here taking a look at the Rossignol After Hours in a 145. This is a hard charging free ride type board that is very consistent in some steeper terrain. It's great at higher speeds, but it still maintains its ability to be nimble and precise in its movements. So it's a pretty fun, dynamic, and nimble freeride board. So I've ridden this board pretty consistently on powder days and in freeride terrain for the past couple seasons. And I mostly rode it with my Union Legacy bindings and mostly rode it with my Vans Luna boots. I also rode it in a variety of different conditions in a lot of different resorts. I've ridden it at Big Sky, at Taos, in Mammoth, and a bunch of other spots in Colorado as well. So let's talk a little bit about the After Hours. The After Hours comes in 4 different sizes, and they're 4 different kind of larger sizes. And so the 145 is the smallest, and that's what I tested. It also comes in a 149, a 153, and a 156. So it would be nice if there was one extra smaller size and it gets to 156. There's not too many women's boards that go up to 156, so that part's cool. It has a little bit of a wider waist width, not too much, but a little bit wider than your average board. The 145 has a 242 millimeter waist width, which is just a couple millimeters wider. It'll add a little bit of stability, but it's not so wide that it takes away from the nimbleness of the board, and so this board can still maneuver quickly, and you can still kind of twist it and manipulate it pretty quick. So it is obviously very directional. It's got about 10 mil of setback, and it's tapered, and so it has roughly 3 millimeters of taper in the 145. It's definitely a directional ride, more for those free ride types environments, but it's not so directional that you can't ride a switch. You can definitely ride the switch. It feels a little backwards, but you can still do it. So then for the flex, it comes with a 7 out of 10 flex. It's pretty stiff, and again, it takes a little bit longer to break in, or at least it took me a little bit longer to break it in. So it's stiff, it's very stable, and it can handle higher speeds for sure. It's not super butterable or playful, it's very stable, so you can take it in some steeper terrain, you can ride it pretty hard, and you can kind of push it a little bit as you're riding it. So the base of the After Hours is a centered 7,500 base, so it's a high quality centered base, and I feel like it has pretty good glide. Again, I've ridden it in a bunch of different conditions, and I always feel like it keeps the speed up pretty well, and it feels like it's pretty consistent and goes pretty quickly, so it holds speed pretty well. So the Camber Profile on the After Hours is Rossignol's Amtech Elite Rocker, and what that is a mostly positive camber board, so it gets about 80% of positive camber going out to about here with positive camber, and then on the nose and the tail you get a little bit of rocker, so about 20% rocker, 80% positive camber. So it keeps the After Hours feeling very stable, very precise, and pretty dynamic and technical, but just a little bit of added rocker helps with float, and also takes a little bit of edge and bite off of that positive camber profile to keep it feeling quick to turn. The After Hours has Rossignol's light grip technology, which is pretty interesting. The Diva also has the light technology, but this one's different. So it has a urethane kind of strip that goes around the board, and this creates a lot of shock absorption and a very damp ride. There's a different section in the middle, which somehow the 2 light strips kind of work together to bend the board, it says, away from the edge and towards the edge at the same time, which is supposed to increase edge control and edge hold on the After Hours, which is kind of cool. I can't say I totally understand how that works, but I never have had an issue with holding an edge with this board in like icy terrain and kind of steep stuff, and so it must work. Other than that, there is no side cut disruption, so there's no bumps along the edge. It uses that light frame technology along with just the positive camber and a nice stiff flex. I feel like honestly the edge hold with this board is awesome. Again, never had an issue, so definitely reliable in some icy terrain and kind of like crappy snow conditions. The After Hours can deliver a really nice consistent edge hold. So let's talk a little bit about how it performed in different snow conditions and terrain. The After Hours feels great on the steeps. The one thing that I like about this board is that it's a free ride board, and so you can charge pretty hard on it. It's a very stable board, but it's also very nimble, and that is the cool part about the After Hours. Is A lot of freeride boards are pretty like hard charging, and you have to ride them at a pretty fast pace in order to get them to maneuver quickly. At least for me, because I'm a pretty light rider. And the After Hours feels different in that I can still twist it and manipulate it quickly, but it still stays very stable for me. And so in steep terrain, I really like this about the After Hours because I can turn it very quickly. I can turn it on a dime. I can close off my turns and take a bunch of speed off, or I can open it up and know that it's going to stay nice and stable and, you know, make some bigger turns or more open turns down the face of the mountain and feel totally fine. Along with the edge grip, the stability, and just the connection to the snow mixed in with the nimbleness of the After Hours, it's a very fun board in steep terrain. And then off-piste, it feels great. You can definitely ride over the top of some chunder and some choppy snow and it'll hold up and it'll be super stable. It's quick enough to kind of turn through bumps and to maneuver through trees as well and tight spots. So super fun off-piste. So you can ride this in kind of hard snow, hard pack kind of snow off-piste, but you can also take it in some deep snow and on a powder day, and it'll handle great as well because of the directional shape, the setback, and the taper and stuff like that. Positive camber, the stiffer flex help it feel technical and very dynamic in off-piste terrain as well. So super fun off-piste, good in bumps, good in trees, and pretty stable over chunder and choppy snow. It's also fun in powder. So you don't need a powder board in your back pocket. You could ride this board as is in the powder, or you can move the bindings a little bit back, and it handles great in deeper snow. So I've ridden the After Hours in a variety of different powder days on some pretty deep days, and it always delivered for me. It has, again, a lot of good ingredients for a good powder board. It's directional, it's set back, it's slightly tapered, but you also get this like stiffer flex with this dynamic feel, which helps it feel stable in the powder, but you also get a decent amount of float. So you can ride it as is with the directional shape and the 10 mil setback, but if you want to move the bindings all the way back, on the 145 you'll get a stance width of 20.5 inches. And is set back at 2.5 inches. So it has a pretty decent amount of directional float if you move the bindings all the way back. And then you get that little bit of rocker on the nose and the tail to help you float as well, mixed in with the directional shape and the taper and all that stuff. So pretty fun board in the powder. It's not a powder specific feeling board, so it's not going to float like one of those surfy kind of pow surfers, and it's not going to float like a swallowtail board. So it does require a little bit more of an active type of riding in the powder, but for me, like, I was in waist deep snow at some points and it still rode great. So it's pretty fun in powder, and the cool part about that is it's still a free ride board. So once it gets tracked out, it's still going to feel great. If you're going to the powder stash and you have to get over some sketchy rocks or some weird snow, you know, wind affected snow or something like that, it's going to hold up great there too. It's going to be a really reliable ride in powder or free ride terrain or basically whatever you're going to find out there.
Did I blind you?
On Groomers, the After Hours is pretty fun. I found it really fun to carve. Again, it's like torsionally, you can twist this board, but it feels a bit stiffer on the nose and the tail. So it keeps it feeling really stable. So you can take this and just kind of straight line some Groomers, or you can throw down some carves and it feels really good. And there's a ton of energy from turn to turn. And the fact that I can twist the board still pretty effortlessly keeps it feeling super snappy out of the turns and just very kind of precise in a way. It's more of like a carving board, but you can make skidded turns on it as well. But yeah, a little bit more of a medium to large radius turner, and definitely more of like the medium to fast range as far as like how fast it likes to go. But even so, you know, you can still kind of play around on it a bit, which is why I like the After Hours, is that it's not all super serious. It still has a little bit of a playful, fun side, but in a very technical and dynamic way. So talking about its freestyle personality, it's not really the type of board I'm going to take through the park, but it's the type of board that I'm going to find some natural hits to play on. So I'm going to find some wind lips or some little rock drops or, you know, tree jibs and stuff like that. And the After Hours is really fun to play there. So the After Hours is a playful enough ride that I felt like I could get creative on it and find little natural hits and kind of seek out these playful things in a free ride realm. But the cool part is you can do that and you can do it riding fast. And so it'll hold up. You know, it's pretty stable in landings. It has a good amount of pop. It's got some nice energy in jumps, and it's a reliable board in landings. And, you know, it is directional like we talked about, but you can totally ride a switch. the tail, you know, it isn't a swallowtail or anything like that. You can definitely maneuver this board around. If you make a wrong turn and you have to get out of a bad situation, you know, you can just pivot the board around and get out, or you can ride switch. It feels pretty backwards, but it's doable and you don't have to think about it too much. So overall, the After Hours could be good for an advanced expert rider. So if you are an advanced expert rider looking for a directional freeride board that is very stable at higher speeds, but also very quick and nimble to maneuver, maybe check out the Rossignol After Hours. If you are looking for the complete ride up and review, you can head over to thegoodride.com to check it out.